Welcome to the Migrant Resource Centre, Northwest Region Incorporated Diversity and Disability YouTube channel. Your Life, Your Voice program, where self-advocates and professionals in the disability sector are interviewed.
The Diversity and Disability Project would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we work and live and recognise their continued connection to land, water and community. We pay respects to elders past, present and emerging.
Nothing about us without us. We pay respects to all self-advocates who have worked hard over the years and still working tirelessly for their rights, supporting others with disabilities and human rights for all.
This channel is for people with disabilities who aspire to seek self-advocacy role models to inspire change in their everyday lives. Nothing about us without us. Choice and control are central themes. Every interview is as unique as you and I.
And it has our fundamental universal human rights ethos of respect for persons with disabilities, having their views heard and acknowledged. After all, it's all in the name. Your life, your voice.
Be the voice of change in your life.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Series 3 of Your Life, Your Voice. I'd like to welcome Gule Al-Thomas, my co-host. Hi, Gule, how you doing?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah.
Hi to all our watchers and visitors today.
I'm good, thank you. And we'd like to welcome the actual brainchild of this program, who came up with the idea about 4 years ago, actually, and has now moved on to bigger and better things. Welcome, Youssef Asfari. Welcome, Youssef.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks, Gule. Thanks for having me, guys. It's an honour, and I don't know if it's been 4 years quite yet, Julie, but I think it's been a few years, and I think you're doing a marvelous job because I've been watching this channel ongoingly, and I think you've created something hopefully that will continue and be amazing because I think it's invaluable. So well done to you on that.
Thank you. Great ideas from great people. So that's all I say.
Great minds think alike.
So today, Youssef is here to talk about the Raising Our Voice project, which is Youssef is a advocacy. What's your title?
Yeah, my title is I've been working for the Ethnic Community Council of Victoria, and my job title is a Disability Advocate Project Officer. So basically that means that I coordinate a project, and I'll go into further details as we continue.
Yeah, wonderful. So would you like to start by telling us a little bit about the project?
Yeah, sure. So the project is, what's going on here? Why have I gone blank?
You're still, we can still see you.
Yeah, but I've gone blank. So basically the project is an ILC grant, which is basically funded by the department. And basically the aim is to improve the understanding of a disability service system for cold Victorians with a disability. It also aims to build consumer voice and awareness and other support pathways to ensure that disability services and the NDIS continue to respond and include the needs of cold consumers with a disability and their families, carers and communities. So that's pretty much a background check of the project. Basically, yeah, it's basically an ILC grant, and we're funded by DHS.
So just a little bit. So ILC is that information linkages and connections?
Capacity building.
Capacity building. So
Yep.
if you're a part of an organisation, it could be small or large. Really, anyone can apply for these grants, for this funding, and because this organisation and even the NIS, its core principles is self-advocacy principles,
Yep.
and it's all about grassroots. So yes, so I would encourage people if they're a part of an organisation to look at this as a potential funding option.
Yeah.
Yes, so I know ECCV is a bit of a larger organisation, but yeah, it's worth noting that small organisations can apply for these grants. I know, like,
What is it? The Ethnic Communities Council of Victoria?
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Communities. It's plural, not communities. Communities.
communities. So I know smaller groups who have applied successfully for
Yep.
IELTS grants,
Yep.
and then like they they can build their groups and the grassroots for the grassroots,
Yep.
and more people can get involved. And we all have different ways to learn. So that's what the ILC information linkage and capacity is all
Yep.
about.
Exactly. And look, just to give the viewers who are watching a little bit of background check about ECCV. So ECCV is a statewide, it's a peak body, a non-profit organisation, and we have a motto. We like to be known as the voice of multicultural Victoria. So we don't just deal with disability sector. There's a range of sectors that we advocate for, mainly in coal communities. But they range from aged care to obviously disability to youth. There's a whole range of advocacy services that they provide for that they obviously inform governments and local governments and state governments about coal communities and what some of the issues and barriers are. And they were established, I think, in 1974. So, really proud organisation. This project again is partnered up with MRC, just to include MRC here and how we can bring you in contact. So we've collaborated with MRC, and yeah, I'll go further to detail about the project once you guys have your questions.
So, Youssef, just to be clear on ECCV's role in the community,
Mhm.
it's different to service providing, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, we don't provide an actual service. Well, we have before, but they're very rare, and through other roles, we've provided a service. But in this particular case, it's more about advocacy work, and linking people to other services that may be required, not only to them, but to their family or to their community. So we represent a group of communities from coal backgrounds and basically inform the government of what some of the issues and experiences are.
So, if people see issues in their community, which in our sector is called systemic,
Mhm.
so people can approach their workers, their organisations, and can we actually can there be like an organisation spokesperson that can contact ECCV and state the issues of the community, and then what happens after that?
So basically, we will take that on board, and we will, if we can't, so we'll do our part in terms of addressing the issue, in terms of informing the government, collecting that information, and basically, when it comes to reporting time, we'll basically make sure that information is distributed to the government or notified to the government. I believe that's how it works, in a plain, simple form. And basically, but what we also do is, if we can't give them the services that they need, we also link them into other services. So we don't just do our bit and then let them go. We look at their case holistically or collectively, and we say, how else can we help this person out rather than just advocating on their behalf? What are some of the things? Where it could be their children, it could be their partner, it could be anything, or their mother, their auntie, their uncle, whoever they need help with, or whoever needs help. We look at things holistically and try and improve the quality of life for that individual in terms of advocating and supporting him in that sense.
So it's very true when we say that the ECCV is actually the voice of multicultural Victoria.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. Oh, look, I'm very proud of ECCV and the work that it does. I think it speaks volumes. I think it shows leadership throughout the community. There isn't a lot of organisations. Um, not all. There's a lot of good organisations, but not all organisations have that aim or vision of um, establishing lived experience, giving lived experience people the I guess the opportunity or the platform to show your work, to show how good you are. They invest. They've obviously invested in me. They've supported me, um, and I've just completely humbled and honoured to have this opportunity to run an amazing project. Amazing project.
Yeah,
I love what I do.
yeah. So it's very important work, and it's very much informed by the connections you guys have with a lot of organisations, which is why partnerships are so important and vital.
Yep.
I think it's fair to say that we all learn from each other. And through lived experience, which ECCV has been very supportive of, particularly over the last 5 years,
Yep.
it's given you guys, or ECCV, a whole great understanding of lived experience, and really supportive of lived experience and giving people opportunities. Well, okay, let's go back to your project.
Could I
Yep.
ask before you go back to the project, I'm not sure if this is the right area, but how does someone with a lived experience find you, yourself, to support them? Like, say maybe someone's family member or friend is watching this.
Yep.
Is it right to put it in now? Like, how
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
talk about your project? Like, how would they find
Yes.
you? Or yeah,
Yeah, so you can find me at ECC. So go on the internet, if you look up www.eccv.org.au and go into the projects tabs, and then you look up RAV or Raise Our Voices, you'll find all my details on there.
yeah,
Um, and there'll be a contact number, or if that's too hard for them, they can just contact directly to the office, and they'll be able to link you in to me directly, or give you my contact details, so that way we can, provide that support for you if you need be.
And if you're in the Western Suburbs, you can always contact the Migrant Resource Centre, and we have the Diversity and Disability, commonly known as D&D,
Yep,
and we will pass on Youssef's details to you.
absolutely.
Or if you're interested in any self-advocacy programs, we have a list of programs that people are maybe interested in, including woodwork and music and all sorts of programs. D&D are involved in education and lifestyle empowerment. And we believe in holistic approach to well-being, and people learn in different ways.
Yep.
And and I run a number of programs, including uh, women's uh, women's disability programs, where we deal with lifestyle and other issues that come up, and it's a bit of fun, connection, food. So it's not all. It's delivered in ways that are very very interactive and supportive, and so we incorporate a lot of different things. So
so yeah. So I'll just put it up. I've just put up the Ethnic Community Council's Victoria website. So if people just can, this is a homepage, and
Yeah, so if you see the third tab, I think it's the second tab where it says policies and projects. If you
yeah,
go to projects,
okay, yeah,
and then you go down to Raise Our Voices, disability self-advocacy,
yeah.
and all the information will be down there.
yeah,
So,
Awesome.
so if you look down the bottom, it'll have all my contact details.
There we go.
yeah, and while we're talking, um, Gulair,
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
maybe yeah, that's great. Yeah, so um, do you want to put that back on, because something caught my eye, and which it's really important. Sorry, Gulu.
That's okay. I'll just bring it up again.
Yeah. So, did you want me to talk just briefly about the project, or did you want to?
Yeah, no, we will, but so I think it's worth highlighting that the project, the Raise Our Voices project, is run in Melbourne, Shepparton, and Gippsland, and the actual connector to that is the Migrant Resource Centre and the Ethnic Council of Shepparton and District and Gippsland Multicultural Services.
Yeah.
Youssef, would you like to expand at all on that?
Yeah, I'll expand that a little bit. So when we say Melbourne, we don't just mean we just got one Melbourne. There are 4 support groups across Melbourne, or Metro Melbourne, which is the north, the south, the east, and the west, which is what we try to target. So it's basically we try to run 4 support groups in Melbourne and 2 support groups in rural Victoria, as you've mentioned, Gippsland and Shepparton. And basically, the aims of the project, like I mentioned before, is to I coordinate 6 support groups with some professional advocates who facilitate sessions, who have lived experiences. I think this is a very invaluable. I guess it's what I love about it the most. It's run by people with disabilities, so we don't have facilitators who are just ordinary people. I think when I say ordinary people or people without disabilities, we are just people at the end of the day. But these are people with disabilities, with lived experience, shared experiences, and they can help you. They can help you to, understand and connect you to other people and relate to some of your issues that you might have gone through in your life. One of the things that come up a lot is what I love about it is we have tailored sessions. So we listen to our participants about what they want and what their goals and aspirations are. And we try to provide information around that. So, we don't just provide information and that's it. We actually try to listen to them and then try to get them to engage with us, try to make sure that it's tailored towards them so that way they can take those skills and tools throughout their life journey.
Yeah, so with these groups, can you give us, some of the topics that people may explore? How self-advocacy for the clients and what do they have a say in topics? Just some really basic information so that people feel more comfortable. If they're thinking, hey, I'd like to join a group, but I don't have the confidence. I don't know. I don't know what to say. Don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Don't know if I'll be welcomed.
Yeah.
And before you do that, can you move your computer so we can see your whole face?
Oops, sorry, that's
right.
Sorry. Is that better?
Yeah. Can you expand on some of those things?
Yeah. So really good question, Julie. But so basically, like I said, they're tailored sessions. So we listen before we go into at the start of this project. This project finishes in June 30th of this year, and it's been running for over a year now. But these sessions, so basically, someone. It's not easy for people to self-advocate and speak up. So self-advocacy, I just want to go back a little bit. One of the common questions I get is, what's the difference between advocacy and self-advocacy? The simplest way to put it is to advocate for something means you support something publicly. So, obviously the obvious thing is here with self-advocacy is learning how to support yourself publicly and making sure that, you have the tools and the concepts of learning how to speak up. And the way we do that is by providing concepts and ideas and learning how to speak up. So there are things like knowing your rights, what is choice and control, empowerment, capacity building. Those are the fundamental concepts of self-advocacy. But having a disability, one thing I'd like to share to all the viewers, just by having a disability, and I've learned this from Christian Historian, and I think it's a beautiful note that needs to be mentioned, that just by having a disability, you're advocating for other people every day without even realizing. So even though you might not be able to speak up, or as confidently as some people like myself, or also yourself, Julie, there's still ways to advocate for others for those who aren't as confident. And look, we're here to make sure to strengthen people's strengths and support their weaknesses. So if speaking up is not their forte or not their strength, we'll try and provide sessions around where that can happen. And that might take a while. That might take 2 or 3 sessions for someone to build that confidence and see that other people can speak up and have their say. And sometimes it takes a little while for people to adapt to that. But again, we have no pressure. You don't have to come in and start speaking like you're, I don't know, Denzel Washington, for example. We just sometimes it's good just to listen and just build rapport that way. And this, like I said, the sessions are around tailored sessions so if you feel like that the sessions we're providing aren't relevant to you, that's when we ask you to approach us. If it's not in front of people, you can approach us individually and quietly, and we can address those issues one-on-one rather than having it exposed in front of everybody. But these sessions are private, are confidential. What is said in the room stays in the room, sort of thing, and everybody is respected and acknowledged. There is no such thing as a bad comment or a bad question. So, just be yourselves. It might take a while, but yeah, you'll see that we're very welcoming, very warming, and very understanding. These are people who have similar issues or have faced similar issues to you, or have some sort of understanding of what it means to look through a disability lens. So we really welcome anyone, as long as they're 18 and they come from a COLD background and they have a disability. That are some of the criteria that we want in our groups. We also have parents and carers that are welcome, so long as there's no conflict of interest, because we understand that there's some issues around conflict around parents might not know about how you feel about your disability and things like that. So for some people, that's it's a very touchy subject, and we respect that, and we want to acknowledge that that's not for everybody, and we need to make sure that those things are protected and respected.
So what happens if the carer that comes with their child, like, how do you help them out as well? Because it is focused on the individual. What do carers get out of it?
Yeah, really good question. That's a really good question, Gilmer. That's a very good question. One of the things I learned or I experienced was I was talking about the medical model versus the social model. And we were just talking about some of the barriers in our environment without even realizing, and what the difference between the medical model and social model. And when we went through it, I had a couple of the support workers listening on the session. And they said to me, you know what, no one's ever spoken to us like this or informed us about what you're talking about. A lot of the stigmatization that comes from the word disability, that people aren't aware of, and it's okay. We need to start somewhere. And a lot of them just said, had we learned this at a younger age, things might have been different and things didn't get spoken about. It was kind of taboo, not taboo, but we never spoke about it. Even for me, having a disability, you don't really know what people think. I know there are I think the support workers and these carers, I think what they get is they get to understand of what it kind of looks like, or they start to understand what it looks like for someone with a disability, how they live their life, and how their views on life might be. And so that way they're not going to be insensitive. Or if some, like, for example, if you had a restaurant, a waiter won't address a person with a disability, they'll address the support worker. I think a good support worker would tell that waiter, hey, listen, you need to ask that person what they want rather than asking me, because that's taking away their voice. It's taking away their ability to speak up. And we're all human at the end of the day, and we want to be respected equally. So I think that's what support workers get. I think they have a better, clear vision of how they can best empower their client, because at the end of the day, you're a professional. Your job is to support the client, not just through their disability, but also mentally and emotionally. You're an ally, So if someone is disrespecting another person because they have a disability, or they're not disrespecting, they just don't know how to approach them, a good support worker, in my eyes, if they've come to our sessions, they'll gain that insight and knowledge about when to address someone and how to address someone, and making sure that that person has their own voice being heard.
That's so important, because I'm also thinking of the individual that comes to the group or wants to come, and they have all these, like, how do you help someone deal with internal shame and guilt about their disability, and coming out about, listen, my disability isn't visible, like, and they might have those feelings.
Yep.
Yeah.
So basically, look, at the end of the day, I remember when I first started, I had anxieties too. We're not born to be. Some of us can talk underwater, and some people can't. And I guess we're not here to expose people. We're not here to make people feel anxieties, but what they can, by coming to our sessions. I believe that they'll, at the very least, even if they don't talk much, they'll at least learn that the importance of speaking up and the importance of knowing your rights. And so if you take some of those tools away with you, then that's already planted the seed for the future for that individual. Even if they're not confident, I guess to answer your question, the more you expose yourself to those things, the better you become at it. It's kind of like anyone who drives out there would know this. If you drive, when you first start driving, you're panicking. You're constantly looking at your mirrors. You're checking everything. You're really, really cautious on everything. You've got a lot of anxieties. But then after a while, when you start doing it over and over again, it becomes the norm, and you start just doing things automatically. And so the same thing goes with speaking up. And someone who's not as confident to speak up, the more you expose yourself within these groups, the better you'll get, the better you'll understand things, and the more confident you'll get, because you understand that you're respected, you understand that you're a valued member. So no matter what you say, you're not going to be judged upon. There's no criticism. And again, if that person still feels like, they don't like to be talking in front of people, that's okay. They can come to us one-on-one, and we can give them the confidence to have that conversation. It's just about having that safe space for them to have that conversation, and that's how we deal with it. So not everybody can come to you and just put their hand up and say, look, I've got this issue, I've got that issue. That's not for everybody. But what we can give them is a one-on-one support to make sure that they're being heard, and we can address those things within the sessions.
So, like, that sounds great. How do they know what things you get help for? Like, is there sort of like areas that you can support them on?
Yeah, of course. So there's things that, so for example, if someone needs help with the NDIS, we would refer them to other advocacy services like MRC or D&D or ADEC. There's a whole range of, Valid's another one, whole range of advocacy services. So again, keeping yourself in the advocacy space, making sure that you're active in advocacy, you'll get more confidence that way, and your anxieties will become less and less because you know what they're all about. So that's what I really recommend for people. Don't just go to one session and that's it. But in terms of getting support with other services, I can refer them to other services like Disability Gateway. I can refer them to, Disability Support Guide, link them in, like I said, to ADEC. Whatever their issues are, we can always find a way to support that person, even if it's family services or children's services. There's a whole range of services that we've been taught, we're expected to help people with. It's not just about, we're just focusing on advocacy. As the project says, as I mentioned before, we link people to other mainstream services, whether it be disability or family or whatever it is. We make sure that they're put in the right direction to make sure they get the help that they require.
Yeah, so for people who are sort of like concerned about joining groups, I think that Youssef has brought it up about the social model of disability. And I know that personally, and at the sector, the value of someone is undermined because of, someone might look differently, or someone might speak differently, or someone may have maybe in a wheelchair, or so. I think that this particular these actual models of of what ROV is providing, does a lot of things to address these sort of barriers, and I think that a lot of people with disabilities are isolated, even if they are in a family environment, because their circle is a bit narrow. And like we were talking, maybe perhaps they don't want to talk about certain stuff to their parents, caregivers, sisters, brothers, and it's really difficult if you don't have that support. So I think that the ROV and other self-advocacy groups go a long way to address this, increasing your circle in a very, very safe and step by step, go as fast as you want process.
Exactly.
And yeah, sorry, go on, Youssef.
No, you're spot on, Julie. You're spot on with that. It's exactly what we try to, the environment we try to create. So it's based on how you would like to travel, and there's no element of we're expecting you to be this by a certain amount of time. It's however you feel like, whatever you want, whatever you gain, your voice, your choice. Same with your motto, your life.
Your life, your voice, yeah. Yeah, so even if you don't speak, even if you don't never speak a word, you're gaining confidence and about other issues that might affect you.
Mm.
Your rights in government departments, your the what some of the things you can put into those packages, some of the barriers that others have experienced, and that you're having the same experience. So you do learn along the way, even if you don't say a word. And I'm pretty sure that down the road, when you build your confidence, you do start to speak out, and that little voice in your head becomes louder.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, it might not happen straight away. It might be 2 years from now. Someone does something to you and you want to make a complaint. So that's self-advocacy. It doesn't have to be right then and there. It's about planting that seed of minimizing your barriers, or minimizing your challenges throughout our community, throughout our society. So it's one of the things I try to promote is sustainability, not just through the self-advocacy support groups, throughout the person's journey of life. Because reliance, I don't know, I've got a disability, and one of the things that I don't like is relying on others. I try to be as independent as possible. I know that I need to be realistic, and I need to be honest with myself in terms of what supports I do need help with. But I think sustainability is the key to independence as much as possible. So it's not about relying on someone. It's about teaching someone how to be self-sustainable. And I think that's the biggest tool that they'll get from these sessions. They'll walk away from that, and it might not click with them for a couple of years or whenever. It could happen straight away, but it doesn't. It's at least the seeds being planted in their mind, and if that day ever did come where they wanted to make a complaint, or they wanted to exercise their rights, or someone had done something horribly wrong to them, or abused them, or neglect them, or they're not happy with the service, they know, oh, I remember that. I remember I went to a session, they were telling me that these were my rights and I have a right to exercise it. And so that's when, you see what I mean? It wasn't done then and there and they forgot about it. It's just planting the seed of the importance of self-advocacy and its value of sustainability. One of the biggest issues I find is that, I think Julie mentioned, it's a systemic issue and systemic barriers. Navigating your way through what is a very complex system, and it's got its flaws, is not easy for the best of us, let alone someone from a non-English speaking background, who has a disability on top of that. It'd be extremely difficult for them to be able to navigate and be more effective in getting the support that they need. So this is what I'm saying is that those tools that we provide in the sessions, or those informations that we provide in that session, I believe it will go a long way, and it will be something that they can keep for the rest of their lives, not just for that moment. It's not something that I got the help, and because what happens is if you rely on someone and that relationship breaks down or they move on, and then you have to start again, you might not have a good relationship with that next person, or you might not, you haven't learned anything from them and you're always relying on them. And I think that's a flaw. I think what we should be focusing on is a project like the ROV project, where sustainability or self-sustainability is promoted and fostered and harnessed, and make sure that person understands that throughout their journey of life, how can I get the support that I need without relying on so much support like I do now.
Do you find that there's a gender diversity, like as in who comes and asks for help and who doesn't? Like, is there any is it something noticeable, or
What do you mean? As in,
like, say for example, is it more men or women that are able to self-advocate?
I don't know. I don't think there's a gender. I don't think there's a gender. There might be, not from where I believe our gender equality is equal. So it's an equal playing field. So men and women are more respected. I think one of the things that comes up is people who come from overseas, they're migrants, and they're not sure of their rights, or they're not sure, or they're not used to rights, or they don't know what self-advocacy is. Because in their homeland or where they're from, it's probably not existent, or it's not in their native language. So I think that might be a bit of a hurdle for say, usually when it comes to children, mothers are the ones who attend, whereas it's very rare for a father to attend in their cultural, depending on what cultural background they come from. But yeah, in terms of the disability sector, in terms of people with disabilities, no, there's no real gender. I know there's some fantastic young women out there who advocate, such as Julie, who advocate for herself and others just as well as any other guy, other man. So, and probably if not better, there's some men who don't know how to speak up and not used to speaking up and talking about how they feel. Sometimes for a man, that's quite awkward and quite, unsettling for them because they're not used to it. So women predominantly are better to talk about things, because they're more in touch with their emotional sides. Whereas for men, sometimes it's a bit tricky to talk about some sticky stuff, but again, it's not about exposing people. It's about just allowing people at their own pace, as Julie has mentioned. When they're ready, they can come to you or they can come to the group and they form them. We've got a group in Gippsland who, they, because of COVID, they stopped attending the actual centre. But they all keep in touch with each other and they make sure that each one is okay and they're doing okay, and whether they need help with things. Now that came from the support group. That relationship was I guess fostered by the support group, and they formed that friendship and that bond. And that's what this support group allows. Apart from self-advocacy skills, it allows friendship. And these are people from your local community, so they also know, they can also teach you how to get about in your local community, what they did and what they went through, how to live well with disability. So it's a very, very tight niche. We try to form not only friendships, but relationships. Even if they're not friends, there's at least there's that mutual respect for one another.
Yeah, so if you're a guy listening to this YouTube session, you're very, very welcome to attend sessions. I think that there is a little bit of reluctance from men, and we'd like to encourage you to come along and to be a part of the groups. All the things where we discussed will apply to you. I think from a male's perspective, there are lots of issues and barriers to do with, being the man and, not being vulnerable, letting your guard down, having a disability, maybe you've got a psychosocial disability that is very hard for you to navigate. We talk a lot about disability, and a lot of culturally diverse people feel that disability is a wheelchair. You know,
Yeah,
they
it's,
don't they,
yeah,
they don't see the broader scope of disability as defined in the Australian context. So we'd like to encourage you to come along and try to understand there are services out there for you. You won't be embarrassed. You can take things at your own pace. And organisations like ECCV, Diversity and Disability, can help you build those bridges for you to lead a more fulfilled life.
yeah. Yep, and also Julie, again, it's if it's not suited, because we're not a counselling service, we don't do, we're not here to tell people to share whatever. People share whatever they want. They might not share nothing, and that's okay. They might come to me one on one, and that's okay too. They don't have to bring it out to the group. They can call me up, or they can come after me to ask the session. Say, have you got 5-10 minutes where we can have a chat? I'd like to talk to you about something. Can you help me, please? There's a lot of people that do that too. Some people come to me after the session, where they don't have to feel vulnerable in front of people. And I think that's a really important, because privacy needs to be respected. It's one of the issues we deal with online is, you know, um, if their partners are at home and they can't be themselves. A lot of men feel like they can't say things in front of their wives or their children because they've never told them these things. So this is where we have a more of a one-on-one session maybe, or help them with other things. Young lady had financial issues and came to me afterwards after the session, and we directed her to to family services or other services that she needed in order to get help that she needed. She didn't expose it in front of the group. She just kept quiet, and then after the group, she emailed me later, and I got in contact with her, and I was able to direct and get her some help with a partner of ours. But I mean, this is the thing: we're not just looking at it from a self advocacy perspective. We're not trying to provide a counselling service either. Our sessions are tailored around self advocacy, but if you need help with other things, like I said at the beginning of this session, we look at things holistically, and you're welcome to approach us one on one, where it's more private and more one on one. And yeah, it's just stays between that person and I.
Yusuf, that sounds awesome. It sounds awesome that you can explore things with the presenting issue might be one thing, and you're exploring the situation, and then you can refer them on if you seem like all the resources that are available, and people just need to tap into that to know that they can trust you. You've been doing this line of work for several years, and you've got the lived experience as well as the factual background of it all. So yeah.
Appreciate your kind words there. I really do. Thank you.
Yeah.
But no, honestly, just again, it's up to the individual. There's no pressure on anyone. I just think that the self advocacy is a way to overcome some of those anxiety issues that Julie and what we've been talking about the last 5 minutes. That and to be fair, Julie, even females have anxiety issues. There's groups, there's people that are females who don't talk a lot. I mean, I just mentioned that young girl before. She was a female. To her, she was it wasn't easy for her to come up, but she felt safe enough for me to help her and direct her. And it wasn't me exposing her and having a one-on-one counselling session. It was just about getting the information that I needed in order to direct her which direction she needed to go to. That was it, and refer her on to other services.
Yeah. So look, self-sufficiency is really important in life, and yes, so very crucial. But having said that, some people, you know, they may have they may have the knowledge and what they want to say,
Mm.
and for a lot of reasons, maybe due to disability or whatever. Uh, you know, do you think it's a good idea to have an advocate with you and someone you trust when you're in a bit of a crisis situation, uh, to sort of like support you, because some people have communication issues. Some people may see it as official or get a bit confused. So, what are your thoughts around those issues?
Yeah, good question, Joy. I think I tapped on it before. I mean, even for me, I've got to be realistic in what I need and support. You know, for me, I mean, some people that might be challenging to be able to self-reflect. That's a skill that I've acquired, and I'm realistic in my approaches, but that might not be for everybody. And some people need a bit more support around that, and a bit more needs to happen around that. And so, yeah, so get the help that you require. If you need, there's three types of advocacy. There's one advocacy where you just get information of someone. The other one is someone just is there to support you, in terms of and allowing you to speak up. And I think the other one is they actually speak on your behalf. So there's three levels of advocacy, that I've learned, and depending on the individual, what they're comfortable with. Some people just need that information and they can do the rest. And they talk on it. They talk for themselves. Other people need you to talk for them, and that's okay. It's still self advocacy. You're still supporting yourself publicly, even though you might have a informal communication problem or a mental health issue or something like that. It's okay. You address whatever support you need. You make sure you get the best support that you require for yourself in order to achieve your goals or achieve your objectives. So there's nothing wrong with getting the support that you need. I'm not saying that you shouldn't get support and you should be totally reliant on yourself. I just think that in a system where it's got flaws, so self sustainability is, I guess, is the key answer to eliminate or eradicate, a system that is flawed where you're relying on someone. We can have a better, more inclusive society. It's just an opinion of mine.
So, yes. So when you're getting an advocate to speak on your behalf, you're basically giving the directions.
Yeah,
So you're telling the advocate, this is what I want, this is what I believe. I know my rights, but sometimes I need a little bit of help because I get confused, and that's fine. It's okay. So basically, if like if the advocate is not following the social model, what's your suggestion?
well, there's a number of things that we have. I don't like to give just one answer. There's no definitive answer. I like to have a few options because I think it's all about choice and control under the model of the NDIS. And so my role would be to provide different options. And in order to address someone who's not fulfilling their duties or having that duty of care, there's a number of things you can do. You can go to another service, or you could put in a complaint to the Disability Commission, or you can complain to the NDIS. So there are a number of things that you can do if you're not happy with things. And it's not about, for some people with disabilities, that's quite challenging. That's really hard to do because they feel bad or they feel like the person's going to lose their job, or, they're very, very, I guess, very, very kind people, a lot of people that I've met. But at the end of the day, they're supposed to be professionals. And if you're not getting a service that they're getting paid for, then I believe they're getting shortchanged, and they have every right to make sure that that's not accepted. Because if we accept that, then that'll get accepted across the board. And in the end, what's the end result? We'll have a continuation of a unequal playing field for people with disabilities. So there's always options. There's always more than one option, Julie, to answer your question, always.
So sorry, Julie, what are the main opportunities and challenges in your experience that self-advocacy has?
Oh, that's a really good question. Well, really good question. Look, it's multi-layered, it's multifaceted. But one of the things that I think that are challenging is getting the public to support, just like the LBGTI, and I forgot the other acronym, Q
plus.
Yeah. Just like the reason why that they had a movement, and they were able to pass it through Parliament, and it became a legislation, it became law, right, to have those rights, is because the public got involved, the public supported them. So the same thing for me needs to happen to people with disabilities. Now, we are starting to get a bit of traction, but we're in 2022. Last week I attended a meeting, and there's still a 30% discrepancy of people with disabilities versus people with non-disability in terms of employment, for example. It's 30%, and that's been like that for 20, 30 years. And that to me is not equal opportunity, that is not equal. Yes, it's not a one size fits all because every disability is different. I get it. But we need to at least smaller the gap or smaller the margin. It shouldn't be such a significant gap of 30%. It's quite staggering. And it's been like that for 20, 30 years. That's quite staggering that we don't have that public support. So one of the challenges is to create social change where equal opportunity is given across the board. And I do have ideas on how to do that. I do have a strategy, and that's about, again, having lived experience people in higher positions who can teach people who don't have disability what it means to look through a disability lens. It's not easy. For some people with disability to book a room, it's not as simple as picking up the phone and going, "Oh, I'd like to book a room for today, please." For a person who has high support needs, they need a hoist, they need to be able to access the wheelchair, they need a separate room for the support worker. There's all these things you got to factor, and that's because our society for so long has been under the medical model where there's a lot of barriers and systemic issues. And I guess one of the issues is breaking down those barriers and incorporating the social model. And the only way you can do that collectively, because individually I can't do it on my own. I need collective people on the same wavelength, people on board from the community to reach out to governments, to reach out to local and state governments, even national and international governments, and say, "Hey, look, we don't want to stand for these people with disabilities are just as much people as what we are." And as a society, there are other countries in Scandinavia where they do that really, really well. And I just wish that some of our community members actually incorporates those sort of ideas. And this is, again, going back to ROV. This is some of the ideas that we provide. We provide that knowledge. What is the difference between medical model and social model, and what are the barriers, and what are the challenges, and what can we do about it? And like I say to everybody, I can't do it on my own. I can change the world for an individual on my own, but I can't create social change on my own. It needs to be a movement. It needs to be collective as a country, as a whole. And then that way people with disabilities have more of a equal opportunity playing field like everyone else, because that's part of our human rights that we have. It should be equal. We call it inclusive these days. It's called more inclusive. One of the things I found last week was a gentleman by the name of Jordan Steele. I think his name is. I'm not sure if that name's correct, but he's a man who he's a politician who has a disability in a wheelchair, and he was unable to attend walk into Parliament because it wasn't wheelchair accessible. That speaks volumes, that the fact that our leaders are not inclusive, and hopefully that changes over time. And people like him and people like Dylan Alcott, now won Australian of the Year. Hopefully that's given us traction. That's given us public image, and people are now starting to realise that people with disabilities are also human too. And so this is some of the issues to address to your question that I think the sector faces. The other thing I can just bring in is grassroots leaderships. A lot of people who've been doing a lot of great advocacy work have been in there a long time. I feel like we need more young people involved, and we need more young people to speak up on behalf of people with disabilities and actually, challenge our governments in a diplomatic way and a respectful way to make those changes and make sure that it is equal across the board as much as possible.
So how do we get this movement, get traction going? Like, what do we do?
Well, look, there's just, how do we get it? It's again, the best thing I can tell you is collectively. So get the public involved, get, the LBGTI, people were putting it outside their homes. They were putting on the flag, the rainbow flag on their rooftops. There was all sorts of things that I remember seeing, that people were they were graffitiing it, they were doing all sorts of things. So it's the power of speech, the power of voice. It speaks volumes, and if we can get people on board, one of the strategies I think is getting people with lived experience in higher positions. If Jordan Steele is if he's listening, I think I'm not sure exactly of everything that he's doing, but I know when it comes to a disability perspective, I admire the man. I think it's quite brave, and I think it's a step in the right direction. And a lot of people need to follow through with that. And hopefully, there's someone else out there, a little boy watching or little girl watching out there, who says, "I want to do what he's doing." I want to make things better. And again, not just people with disabilities, but also people with non-disabilities. Getting young kids to understand how to approach people with disabilities, teaching them from a young age the concept of self-advocacy is another thing that they can do. So that's why we take parents and carers, because parents and carers are vital to the home. So self-advocacy isn't just about coming to the group and learning about it. It needs to be incorporated into the home. It's important. It's fundamental. Because you can teach that to your other children who don't have disabilities, and then they know how to speak to someone with a disability, and so on. It becomes like a butterfly effect. It becomes like a ripple effect, and that's how you change. It's going to take a while, but how do we eat an elephant? We eat one bite at a time. It's an impossible task, as it seems, but we need to start somewhere. We can't just say, oh well, we can't do it, so we're not going to try. We need to try. We need to start somewhere.
We need a union.
Yeah, I think we do. I think, look, we've got a lot of great stuff out there. We've got a lot of stuff out there, but the problem is we need to work with governments and politicians and make sure that our voices are being heard. And, I don't know what that sort of looks like, but I can tell you, I'm not here to attack any politician or to undermine anyone. I think it's a learning curve on both sides. I think one of the things I learned from Christian was that we need to be diplomatic and collaborate with them. We're not trying to scare people and frighten people about us. And you've done this. We're not blaming anyone, saying, no, you did this to us and you did that to us. No, what we're trying to do is say, hey, look, this is what we're going through. How can we address these issues? How can we work together, and have that diplomatic approach where everybody has that equal playing field? In an ideal world, that would be great.
You spoke about Dylan Alcott, and amazing speaker, and I love his speech about when he saw the ramp, he thought he had half a chance. And he's very charismatic, and Australia is known for its athleticism.
Yep.
I can't say that word.
Athleticism. Yep.
Clearly.
Yeah, I got it.
But how do we? I suppose the challenge is, I'm not athletic at all, not in the slightest.
Yeah.
So and that's great. Like, it's great. So how do we use the Australia of the Year in a way that can empower and encourage those who are not athletic, those who are really grassroots, those who are, don't have the confidence to voice their opinions? How can we use this experience of Dylan to really empower those who feel like, let's face it, when you're not empowered, you feel like crap. How do we get to that grassroots level?
Well, again, I think for me, I don't have a magic ball. I wish I could answer all those, foreseeable questions, or what the future holds. But for me, it's got to start from young. Education. You can teach someone at an older age. I'm not saying you can't, but I think if you really want to make it easier, I remember I had an operation on my legs, and my operation wasn't 100% successful. But I remember my surgeon said to me, had you been younger, I was 15 at the time, had you been younger, the surgery would have been more successful than now that you're older, because your body, it gets hardwired or adapts to a certain way. So now I'm not saying that there's a saying you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I don't necessarily agree. I think for some people, no matter how old you are, depending on your mindset, they're always learning, and other people are closed off. So it depends on the individual. But I think for me, in order to have that generational change, you need to start from young as well. And it needs to be incorporated into homes, it needs to be incorporated into schools, it needs to be incorporated into all sorts of industries across the board, you know, whether it be Urella, whether it be day services, whether it be anywhere. If you want to have that social change where it's more inclusive, it needs to be stripped right back and implemented from a young age. And obviously from a tertiary level, I'd even have classes or sessions around. I'd love to do schools and talk to people about disability and self-advocacy, because even kids with non-disabilities have self-advocacy issues, you know, speaking up for themselves. You know, it's not easy just because you got a disability doesn't mean, you know, they're the only ones that can't speak up. A lot of people have difficulty speaking up. It's hard. It's really, really hard. I know I gave a speech in front of 500 people and my throat just seized up. I couldn't talk, literally. So it's not easy. It's quite challenging, quite daunting for someone, for anyone. You know, but again, the more you expose yourself to it, you know, I think the more you'll get better at it. So practice makes perfect.
It does. We're coming to the end of our interview.
Oh, really? I was having fun.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank Youssef. Youssef, I don't believe your throat seized up. You can talk underwater, but I do understand that could happen because I can talk now, but my throat sometimes seizes up, and I've learned to deal with that. So I suppose one takeaway thing that people who take away is the seed metaphor. So you plant that seed, and what happens to seeds?
Well, it
They
depends.
grow.
Well, it depends what you feed them, Julie. See, this is what I'm trying to say.
You
Right
feed
thing.
them.
You got to feed them the right things. They need water, they need sunshine. You can't. What I'm trying to say is you need to be active. The key here is to be
Yeah.
active. Get involved in your community. Get out there. Go see what some of the issues are, and start engaging with people. And over time, you'll just build up confidence automatically without even thinking. Because I was in that same position.
Yes, so I did a course recently. It's about weight loss, but it is appropriate to this conversation. It's called consciously competent. So there's a few stages, but
Yeah,
what it means is that you become so competent at what you're doing, you don't have to think about what you're doing. You just automatically do it,
yeah,
like driving a car
yep.
and learning how to walk. So on that note, I will ask Claire to go to our outros, and we'll see you again.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for coming, and hopefully our viewers can subscribe. Thanks for listening to us. We appreciate your time, and also email us, which will come up, email us or inform us of what you want to hear on this channel. So we're very open to that as well.
Yeah, well, can I just say I'd like to thank MRC, ECCV, and all our partners involved. I think I'm not sure if I've done due diligence there, but again, just want to echo your voice, Gilme, that you know, put in the comment sections what you guys thought, and if you guys want to, you know, get involved, hit me up. You know, like and subscribe this channel. The more you guys get involved, the more you share, the bigger it gets, and who knows where how big this rabbit hole goes.
And maybe down the road we'll have the strain of the year appear on our channel.
I would love to see that.
I would too.
Maybe we should ask Jordan Steele to come along too, the politician. He'd be good too.
Yeah, that'd be good. Anyway, on that note, we'll go to the outros.
Yeah.
And we will see you again for another edition of Your Life, Your Voice next Friday. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye,
Take
everyone.
care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Catch us on Your Life, Your Voice YouTube channel live every Monday fortnight or on demand.
We would like your comments and suggestions on topics that you would like us to explore. Leave your comments on YouTube comments section.
Please feel free to email us on dndyourlifeyourvoice@gmail.com. or contact us via the Migrant Resource Centre Northwest Region Inc. Phone number 1300 676 044. 1300 676 044.
Diversity in Disability is a project of the Migrant Resource Centre Northwest Region Incorporated, and would like to thank the management for funding this project, especially living through the COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic has been difficult for people with disabilities living in isolation.